With excitement, allow me to introduce to you today's guest, President of Chargebacks 911, Ben Bridwell. Ben, my man, are you feeling unstoppable today?
I am. Thank you so much for having me.
Stoked to have you here. This is a really important conversation we're going to have today. We're going to be discussing chargebacks, and I want to give a quick nod to Tommy Seto, a member of Restaurant Unstoppable Network, who reached out to me and said, "Hey, Eric, we're having a ton of issues with chargebacks. We don't know what's going on. We want to if you could get an expert on the show to dive deeper into this subject to educate us, that would be really great." And this is really what the future of Restaurant Unstoppable Network's all about. I have the network, you have the questions, you have the pain points, put me to work for you. And this is just a beautiful example of that. So thank you, Tommy. And I can't wait to get into today's subject. But before we dive into the world of chargebacks, Ben, why don't you just go ahead and get that motivational, inspirational ball rolling with a success quote or mantra? What do you got for us?
A quote I really, really love, Eric, is I'm big on problem solving and also learning from failures. And so I like the quote, the measure of success is not if you have problems or not. It's if the problems that you have are the same problems that you had yesterday. I know it's a mouthful, but
The measure of
if you,
success isn't whether or not you have problems. Say that one more time.
yeah, the measure of success is not whether you have problems, it's if the problems are the same problems that you had yesterday.
Mm.
So, in business and building organizations, things like that, you're always going to have challenges. Good businesses are solving those and they're moving on to the next thing and the next thing. They're iterating, they're moving forward. So I'm big about making sure what I'm dealing with today and the challenges I'm dealing with today are not the same ones that I had yesterday, but those are solved and we move forward.
Yeah, it makes me think of just this idea. Like, I think we have in the back of our mind, our naive minds sometimes, that like our list is never ending. It just keeps going and going and going. We just want to get to the end of this list. And I think as soon as you realize that there is no end, that it's just a matter of living intentionally and choosing
Yeah.
which battles you fight today and prioritizing the most important problems that will move the needle and delegating and knowing what problems you're meant to serve and what problems you can delegate or outsource. Like, problems aren't going anywhere.
Yeah.
We just have to choose the fights every day that we want to fight, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Also,
Yeah, that's what progress is. It's solving the challenges of the day and moving on to the next thing.
yeah, man. Great way to get this thing started. So, real quick, before we dive into today's subject, I want to learn more about you. And just as a teaser, today we're going to be covering obviously chargebacks. We're going to be covering 5 segments. Segment 1 is setting the stage, chargebacks 101 for restaurants. Segment 2 is the rise of friendly fraud and first party misuse. Segment 3 is organized chargeback fraud, the new criminal playbook. Segment 4 is what restaurants can do about it. And segment 5 is the bigger picture. So that's what we're going to be covering today, just as a little teaser. But before we dive into that, Ben, why should we be listening to you? What makes you an expert on this subject?
So Chargebacks 911 is the industry leader in chargeback and dispute management. So our founder, Monica, started this entire business when there was nothing that existed. There was nothing, even people did not you really understand what a chargeback was. It was back in the early 2000s when e-commerce was really becoming a big thing. Monica had her own e-commerce store, and she started getting disputes. And just like many folks who get into business, they're doing well, they're excited about selling lots of products, serving lots of customers, doing whatever, and they start getting disputes. And so she went to her bank and she said, "Hey, can you help me with these chargebacks? I know the person got the merchandise. I know whatever, I have with some of these claims, I have a counterclaim or a dispute." And so they said to her, "This is the cost of doing business, and don't worry about it. Just move on and take the loss." Well, Monica, not to belabor this, but Monica taught herself the Visa and MasterCard rules, the thousands and thousands of pages, and what fraud is and what friendly fraud is, first party fraud, all the different variables. And she learned how to manage her own chargebacks. And through doing that, She learned how to recover lost revenue from friendly fraud, but also to prevent chargebacks from happening, which we'll go into in some of the segments. But so from that, from that problem that she solved for herself, it eventually evolved into, her bank saying, wow, you really kind of figured this out. Can you help others do what you're doing? And then she started getting calls from businesses saying, hey, big brands, can you help me with chargeback management? And CB911 was born. And, we now, 15 years later, and I've been part of the organization about 8 of those, but we have some of the biggest and best minds in payments in the world, Visa and MasterCard experts that work on our team, folks from every bank virtually every big financial institution, every payments company in the world that have worked on making CB911 the very best possible avenue for dispute management. And so I would say, me particularly, whatever, but the organization as a whole, why you should listen to CB911 is, we are a group of the biggest experts in the industry who have been doing this longest. We've been doing this before this was even an industry.
Yeah. What were you doing before this? I'm just curious. Like, how did you find yourself as the president of this organization, Chargebacks 911?
Yeah, so funny story. I have only had 2 jobs in my life. The first job is I started as a teller in a bank, and I worked my way up to a branch manager and then a multi-unit manager and then an executive. And I was at that bank for 17 years, and I ran the issuing for the bank and the consumer lending divisions and such. And I met Monica actually through a mutual acquaintance, and she was like, "Hey, this is what I'm doing at Chargebacks 911. You've got to come in and join me. We're building something really cool. We've got really cool technology." And over the course of about 6 months and seeing what we were doing here, I got really excited honestly about payment specific uh, and chargeback specific technology. And being in banking, it's kind of legacy. I mean, every bank virtually does the same thing. Some they do it incrementally better or different than the others, but it's a lot of legacy business out there. But what we were doing in dispute management was very cool, and it's serving segments that are growing rapidly. E-commerce is a big segment for chargeback management because obviously fraud is going to occur at a greater rate whenever you're not face to face. And so anyway, long story short, I joined in a corporate development role, and I've just kind of moved my way up over the last several years and find myself as the president.
I love it, man. What was it specifically about Chargeback 911's technology that appealed to you? Why was this so groundbreaking? Why was this so drawing for you?
Well, I found that when you consider an industry that is widely misunderstood, that people don't even know, most people tell me, I don't know, like what's a chargeback? How does that work? And I'm sure you've
Yeah,
had
we'll get
that.
into that. We're not to answer that
Yeah,
question.
yeah. And so I was like, wow, I was really curious of like, wow, what is a chargeback? And then when I started peeling back the layers and learning more about it, was that the industry is so massive. It's multi-hundred-billion-dollar industry.
You're saying industry, you're talking
There's
about processing.
no, I'm talking about fraud. I'm
Okay.
talking about, yeah, like fraud, the fraud industry. And so, and I found that merchants, it's becoming a huge pain point, and particularly our restaurant clients as they shift increasingly to either, an online sales channel or a multi-channel approach where they have both restaurants and, online. I found that it was a big problem, and it was eating away at people's margins. It was causing financial issues to merchants, and I felt like CB911 was offering an amazing kind of avenue for folks to take charge of that. And then I also, we our technology, we have some of the brightest and best engineers in the world, and we've had them for a long time. We were doing AI before AI was even a buzzword that everyone was using. And so when I saw kind of the technology stack and what we're doing, I was just so excited to think like, wow, there's an industry here that's solving a big problem that really needs to be addressed. And it's emerging and new in a niche within payments that is kind of, the last thing that people approach is the fraud niche. When everything was growing and everybody's focused on distribution through online channels, fraud was kind of the afterthought. It was the thing that no one thought about until it became a big issue and they had no choice but to think about it. So we're solving a big problem in an emergent industry and using the best possible tools. And also we have, Monica is honestly a visionary in the industry. And just if you're gonna uh, follow a leader, let it be someone who's actually a genius.
Well, I think we have a better idea of you and the appeal of Chargebacks 911 and what drew you in. And I'm just chomping at the bit, man, to get into it. So again, 5 segments we're going to be covering today. The first segment is setting the stage. Chargebacks 101. Take it away.
All right. So I think let's set a stage with what is a chargeback because that's a widely not to I did a little scavenger hunt for my team, and one of the challenge was go to a person in your personal life and ask them what a chargeback is and video what they say. And having people explain it showed me what a misunderstanding of a chargeback there is. Most people know a chargeback because their card was skimmed at a gas pump at one point and they had to call their bank and their bank credited them back. But a chargeback is much more than that. And so that is what's called fraud, true fraud. And then there's also disputes that relate to friendly fraud, first party fraud, which is a consumer that has went and made a purchase and they didn't like something. Maybe they got bad service or something, that whatever they got their food, but they didn't like it or they didn't feel like it was a good value, and they do a dispute to the merchant. It's you call your bank and your bank initiates a dispute, which reverses the charge on the merchant and debits their account. So you're a merchant and you wake up and you're like, hey, I've got 100 chargebacks today, and my account was just debited for the value of those 100 chargebacks. That is a dispute. That's what a dispute is for a merchant. That's what a dispute is for a consumer.
Got it. So basically, nothing is stopping any patron from going to the bank and being like, I didn't authorize this. Or
Yeah.
if you went to the bank and you said, I wasn't satisfied, could they still do a chargeback? Or
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
Yeah, the a chargeback, the way it works is there's a set of rules. So the consumer can initiate a chargeback, and this is one of the issues, is you call your bank. So you're banking with the bank, and that's who that owns the relationship. You say, hey, I want to do a chargeback. The threshold for doing that is very low. And in fact, you usually don't have to call your bank. You can do it online or through your app.
how
You
low, how
initiate a
low is it, that threshold?
very low. I mean, it's you like I can go in my bank app right now and do it through an app with very little friction. And it initiates a dispute. It credits me, initiates a dispute to the merchant and debits their account. And that merchant has a very short time frame in which to review that and decide if they want to respond or not. And so, it's a great tool and we should talk about it as such. It's a consumer protection device. Like if you're a consumer and you actually have something go wrong, it's an amazing tool. But it also can, if we're not careful, it can be misused. And merchants, both parts of the system have rights. So the consumer has rights to initiate a chargeback. A merchant has rights to respond to it and disagree with it.
And what's that window? And I think we're going to be getting into this a little bit, so I don't want to get down too far down the road before
Yeah.
we get ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, it's bank specific, but it's very short. It's usually anywhere between 3 and 10 days.
I mean, how much time does a restaurant owner have? You know what I'm saying? To just go back and dispute this. So even if you know how to dispute this and you're getting multiple chargebacks and the rate is only going up, like it doesn't make sense to devote your time
Yeah.
to disputing these things. And if
Yes, because if you're a restaurant owner and you're managing your business and you're an expert at your business, do you have time to go through and research, reason codes and the compelling evidence requirements and all the things that go along with it? That's why you need, I mean, honestly, that's why we exist, because our system pulls it in, knows exactly what to do, how to respond and do it. And also for, if you're a restaurant owner and you're doing great business, you're focused on that top line. You're focused on serving your clients, everything else where, $1,000 in chargebacks may it doesn't warrant your time to go and learn how to be an expert on that. But over time it adds up.
yeah. So how much time would it take if I was a restaurant owner and I noticed a chargeback that didn't seem right and I wanted to dispute it from the time I notice it to the time I win the appeal? How much time am I devoting to that chargeback
Oh man, 15 hours
for
perhaps.
one chargeback?
Yeah.
How many, let's say one unit operator, how many chargebacks does one unit operator get in a month approximately?
There's a lot of variables there. So it
Ballpark.
depends on, uh, let's say, okay, so you have one unit and you're doing $1 million
Million a
dollars a
year.
year.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe 100 a month.
100 a month.
Yeah,
1,500 man hours. That's
yeah,
just ludicrous.
yeah. If you don't
This
employ
makes me angry,
technology,
Ben.
yeah, I know it's crazy. Well, and that is why it's prohibitive many times. That the whole system can be prohibitive to respond because it is so cumbersome.
Yeah.
And you may, if you're good and you've learned, you may be able to cut that 15 hours down to 5 over time. But I mean, 5 hours, and imagine your average ticket's $40. Do you have 5 hours to spend on $40?
Right.
You
Yeah.
don't, you
That's
know?
that's wild. Okay, so we've kind of unpackaged what a chargeback is and how it works. Is there anything else relative to that header that needs to be unpackaged before we move to the next question?
No, the point I just want to drive home in that is, a chargeback is an amazing tool, and it is very important for consumer protection. It's the whole reason why a chargeback exists is that, when plastic became a thing and everybody was trying to get people to trust and use a non-cash payment device, it was a way to say, hey, if you have fraud in your account, we'll protect you. There's zero liability. Over the years, it's been now there's a whole other, fraud usage that is friendly fraud and first party fraud and all the other things that come along with it. But, that's something I want to take away on explaining that is it's a good thing, but there's misuse. And that's what we're going to talk more about is how it's
People
misused.
always got to ruin a good thing, man.
I know, I know. Listen, I've done chargebacks myself in my personal life. If I felt like I was actually, like there was wrong, I was wrong.
Right.
I will
Right.
do a dispute. Anyone should, and that's the way it should go. But like, I've never done all the other things that we see,
Right.
unfortunately.
What up, unstoppable restaurant owners and operators? We have to interrupt today's video to let you know that Restaurant Unstoppable and Restaurant Systems Pro, we're taking our relationship to the next level. Beginning in July of 2024, Fred Langley, CEO of Restaurant Systems Pro, is making himself available once a week in Restaurant Unstoppable Network to answer all of your restaurant systems questions, whether it's the profit margins. He will look at your P&L. Bring your P&L. He will take a look at that. He will dissect it. He will help you find your profit, whether that be through budgeting, inventory management, costing and recipe cards, labor, checklists, you name it. He is a master of restaurant systems, and he's making himself available to you. Fred Langley and Restaurant Systems Pro started as a consulting firm, and for over 16 years, they've been helping their clients increase their profit by 10% or more. What are you waiting for? Click the link below to join our Facebook group, Restaurant Unstoppable Network.
So we kind of answered the question of what is a chargeback and how does it work, but why is the restaurant industry increasingly vulnerable? Like what's going on in that vertical alone that makes it more vulnerable or increasingly vulnerable?
So I will tell you, Eric, we saw during COVID, we saw such a spike in restaurant industry chargebacks. And the reason why is because, for many years, the vast majority of restaurants, the payment was in person. You go, you sit down, you have a meal, you give the waiter your card, they stick it in the machine, and you're good. When COVID happened, there was an acceleration to card not present, in-app purchases, QR codes on the tables, buy curbside to go, food delivery. So all of these create an environment where the buyer and the seller are not in the same place. They're not face to face when the transaction's done. What that does is it curbs consumer behavior, makes it easier to file psychologically more likely to file a chargeback. But second of all, the chargeback rights for card not present versus being in person are very different. And so there's much broader chargeback rights when you're not there. And so now, I've read statistics that, major chains of fast casual and QSR are now seeing 50+% of their transactions that are completed through an app or through their website. And so now you have 50% of your sales, and you're a big organization who it's done with the consumer not in person. And so that leads to much more fraud. Also, food delivery, services there have been an amazing
Right.
convenience. There's obviously an amazing, but we have many of them as clients, and we have seen such an aggressive, first party fraud. I will tell you anecdotally, frat houses at universities that order, order massive amounts of merchandise or food, and do, alcohol and things like that, and do chargebacks. And the thing is, if you don't have a strategy for responding to those, you only invite more. It gets more and more, because the consumer's payoff is, hey, I called and said I didn't do this, and I was credited immediately. It goes to the merchant doesn't respond at all. And then now the consumer has payoff. The college student has payoff, and they got it for free essentially. And then they do it over and over. And we've seen that immensely, particularly in food delivery, particularly in restaurant industry.
Yeah. So those three big reasons why we're seeing an increase is because more up to 50% of all sales are going through a website, an app, or third party. There's a looser, I guess you said broader rights, or I think were your words,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
the consumer, meaning it's easier. I guess it leans in their favor when you're not
Yeah.
in person. And then that last thing you said is the psychology. And is that just because like it's more transactional, like you're doing business with a process, not a person?
Yeah, it's exactly. That's a great way to put it. Imagine you order something through an app. You've never met the business owner, any face, any person, and then you get it, and then you can also go in another app and do a chargeback. All no interaction, and that depersonalizes it, makes it so much easier to justify in your mind the dispute, and not feel bad about it.
Yeah, it's amazing what we sacrifice as humans for convenience and value,
Yeah.
or price, I should say, convenience and price. People are expensive. And with technology, we can really scale process. We can do more with less. But we
Yeah.
don't really weigh what that means for uh, psychology, for like I think we need to be seen. It's a
Yeah.
human need to be seen, to be valued by your guests, by your community. Um, and when we rely on technology to streamline these transactions, like it's harder and harder to be seen. Like the word company, a company is literally people. We don't do
Yeah.
business with companies. We do business with people, right? But that's becoming a less true statement as we go into the
Yeah.
future. And I really at what point does consciousness kick in and say, no, I want to do business with a person.
Yeah.
I want to know the individual, the farmer, the chef, the bartender, the server, the team of
Yeah.
people that came together to create this experience for me. Like, when is that going to be more valuable than saving time and a few dollars.
If I walk into your store, Eric, and I buy something from you and I have a chat with you and all the things, and then I'm upset with my purchase for some reason, I'm very likely to go back to you and talk to you and resolve it. If I buy it without ever meeting a person or doing anything, it is so easy for me to just resolve it through the app by doing a dispute because there's no human there, there's no ties. Like you said, you're doing business with process, the process of buying it, the process of disputing it. There's no ties outside of that. The other thing is, the world now, the more convenient it is to purchase, the more like, so you remove friction, because if you have a lot of friction in a purchase, you hurt your checkout, like your conversion. People are not, they don't finish the transaction. And so the whole thing is making transactions convenient, using technology to make it where it's super easy. I mean, isn't like, can't you text or tweet a pizza emoji and order a pizza these days? I mean, the
Right.
friction. And so with that, you have way more consumers using it, which means that puts them in the channel of less personalization with the transaction and broader chargeback rights and more likelihood to just use that as a mean to resolve any issue they have instead of going back to the merchant.
My Lord. All right. I feel like we're going to start answering too many of the questions that are later on in the conversation. So I'm going to move this thing forward unless there's anything that hasn't come out. Did we discuss common misconceptions about disputes in the food service? Is there anything that you want to get out regarding that line before we move forward?
I think one of the biggest misconceptions generally about disputes and certainly applies to the food industry is that a chargeback relates to fraud. It doesn't, many people, their association with a chargeback is that they had fraud because people have real fraud. And so my chargeback or my card was skimmed at the gas pump or whatever, but that is only a portion of disputes. Really, the broader amount of disputes is first party and friendly fraud. And so that is the biggest misconception, is associating a chargeback with, hey, the consumer definitely had fraud. That is not the case. It's the case sometimes, but not a majority of the time.
Got it. So we've unpackaged segment one, setting the stage in Chargeback 101 for restaurants. Segment two, the rise of friendly fraud and first party misuse. And I've been biting my tongue to have you go deeper into that, but I knew it was coming up next. So get into it. Unpackage that more for us.
Yeah, so I made some notes here. So 64%, so according to the Cardholder Dispute Index, which is an industry publication that's put out, about 64% of restaurant chargebacks were classified as first-party misuse. That means that the consumer did the transaction and decided on their own to dispute it. And that can be, I want to get free food, like the college dorm example and frat house example. It can be any variation of that, but it's a non-fraud, intentional chargeback that doesn't relate to a real dispute with the merchant. And we've seen just some little anecdotal examples. We had a large, international restaurant chain join us. They had never responded ever in their history to a dispute before us because it was kind of the cost of doing business thing.
Well, what was it? 15 hours? Did you say 15 hours?
Oh man, they weren't. Yeah, it was it was the time to respond. It was the knowledge, because to have someone who actually understands how to respond to a dispute takes, it's a highly paid, highly kind of, you've got to follow it. The rules are changing every single day. So that person has to stay up to speed on how to respond, what the requirements are, et cetera. So this restaurant had, for two reasons, they didn't have the strategy to respond because they didn't have the internal resources to do so. And B, they had launched Card Not Present. They had launched apps and other means for selling in their restaurants. And so the chargebacks were increasing month over month, year over year. They started to become a huge multi-million-dollar line item. And so when we onboarded this merchant, our systems and our team do an analysis, and we kind of start to get a baseline of where they're at, what's going on. And we saw the same consumer at one of their restaurants go in every Friday for weeks in a row and do a curbside pickup order for steaks and all kind of different things and do a dispute every single week for weeks and weeks on end, the same exact consumer. And that is an example of first party fraud, first party misuse, where they are deciding, hey, I want to essentially get this for free. And so I'm going to make a dispute. And then B, it's also a great example. If you don't respond to disputes, what can happen?
You don't pay attention to it. What doesn't get measured doesn't get minded. Like people can just abuse.
Yeah. Yeah, they learn, oh, well, I did this. It was super easy. I went in my app. I got my money back. No one said a word, and there was no response. And guess what? I can do it again and again, and there's no accountability for it.
That's crazy. I mean, some of the things just going through my head, like, go back 20, 30 years ago, you go out to eat. There is that you have to engage a human being and say, I'm not satisfied with this.
Yeah.
I don't like this. And then typically maybe 2 or 3 bites are taken out of it, right? Usually what happens is they take the food away. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's do it again. Let's make you a new one. But in this situation, it's being delivered to you. You're taking it home with you. They're not going to go send somebody to your house to go pick it up. Like you're
Yeah.
completely just avoiding that human part of having to be a shitty person. Part of my,
Yeah. It's
but like
right. Yeah.
it's I don't know. It's just we live in a very weird world right now. So 64% of first party misuses. Say that stat one
So
more time.
64% of restaurant chargebacks in 2025 are classified as first party misuse, which is the example that I gave.
And all you have to say is I didn't receive my order or that wasn't me. And those are loopholes.
Yeah, it's so easy. You can go into your app and you can click the charge, you can click dispute, you can enter some notes. It could be that the food was not as it was described. It could be I didn't receive my order, it wasn't me, all the things. And so you can say whatever and file a dispute. And now it's on the merchant to respond. Now, if the merchant knows, hey, this is the claim, so there's a reason for that. Now it generates a code, and then it says you have to respond with certain requirements to show it was them, or they did receive it, or whatever. If they know how to do that, they can respond and they can represent that charge and dispute with the consumer. But if you're the merchant who gets that and it says it wasn't me, and you don't know what to do, or you don't have a strategy for disputes, or the volume is overwhelming that you can't possibly handle them all, then it times out. The consumer wins it,
Wow.
and you're done.
That's wild. So I think the other variable too, and I've heard this, that a lot of this is actually coming from people within the network, that they have seen an increase in chargebacks, and the majority of those chargebacks are coming through specifically Toast POS.
Yeah.
So what's going on with POS systems and chargebacks and the correlation there?
Yeah, because you can check out without interacting with a person and inserting your card. There's all kind of little avenues and
You're talking about
apps.
like the QR code specifically?
Yeah, all of it, any version of checking out. So it can be the iPads at the table, it can be the QR codes, it can be the apps, it can be all the different versions that don't involve you going up to or them taking your card and inserting it into the system. Now you can still charge back the other way. It's just the rights are slightly different.
Is there a specific, I mean, relative to like delivery apps and POS systems, is it just the fact that there aren't people physically present for the transaction? Is that the only hook?
Yeah, I mean it's so in payments there's card present and card not present. So card present is you've stuffed your card in the machine and it read it, or you tapped it, to pay. Card not present is essentially every other version of payment. And so putting your card in a website, storing it, all those different things gives a different set of chargeback rights. There's back to there's a psychology to it because you're not interacting with a person when you do that transaction, but there's also a chargeback rights that comes along with that when the card is not present.
Okay. So, I mean, what are the impacts of this on profit margin, staff morale, and like vendor relationships? Like generally, like
Huge.
is like get into that.
Yeah, huge. So I mean, we have merchants come to us and they're losing 500,000 $1 million a month in disputes in some cases. It can be
How
uh,
many?
you know, d-
That's a very large organization, though, right?
yeah.
Like, give
Yeah,
me an
so
example of like how many units and what is the per unit at like average
well,
income?
let's take, let's say you're a franchisee and you have five pizza shops and you're getting, 300 disputes a month at an average of $50. You're getting why is my brain not working? Whatever the math is on that.
What?
Yeah, like you're getting a lot. And think about it, it's the loss there. So say you're getting, let's use a round number, you're getting 3,000 a month in disputes. And in the scheme of things, maybe your business is doing, a couple $1 million a year or whatever. $3,000 a month. Imagine how many pizzas you have to sell to generate $3,000 in profit. Because that's what it is. It really represents probably 10,000 or 15,000 in sales. And then the worst thing is, so you get the loss and it's impacting your business, it's impacting your bottom line, it's costing you revenue, but you're going to have a segment of consumers with bad behavior trained that are going to continue to do this, and it will actually grow and grow and grow and grow. And then further, when you redo your processing relationships, your bank relationships, things like that, they're going to look at your disputes and they're going to say, you get 300 disputes a month. You don't even respond to them. So they must be correct. You had nothing to say. You accepted them and moved on. So it must be correct. It's going to impact your payment processing fees. There's going to be all kind of things that come along with that.
Wow. It just snowballs and multiplies. But how does this affect get it more into like staff morale? I'm curious in how you've discovered this really affects staff morale.
Yeah, people get upset. Like, have you ever dealt with something and it was just wrong? And you're like, you know what? It's small, it's stupid, but man, it's wrong. Like, it's wrong. I know they got that. They know they did the thing. They got the merchandise. I worked really hard on that. I made this meal. That is what we see is people get really upset because especially in small businesses, they interacted, they made the food, they took the call, they did all the things. And so it's super frustrating to see someone kind of win when they shouldn't. It also, I mean, imagine, some restaurants have policies with tips. If there's a dispute, it gets called back.
Right.
There can be all kind of variations of that can impact the staff morale negatively.
Yeah. But for the most part, these third party and out of unit orders to the staff, is that even on their radar that these things are being charged back? Like that because the food doesn't physically come back to the restaurant. So
Yeah,
what is
that's a good question. It depends obviously on the restaurant. It's usually on the management's radar. And I'll be honest, in some cases it's not. It's a line item and they just have been taking the loss and it shows up, it always shows up somewhere. So whether it's in their P&L and it's just a line item that they're seeing your chargebacks are up or you lost $3,000 last month or what have you, or they're actually showing them the disputes and having them try to kind of help, they're seeing it somewhere. And yeah, the food's gone, the item's gone. You're never getting that back. It's really like your account's getting debited for it.
right? So what about vendor relationships? You talked about, credit card processors and this helps influence your rate, but like how else is this affecting vendors?
Well, so yeah, it definitely impacts your rate. And I don't know if you realize this too. If you get too many disputes, you can actually lose. There's a ratio from the card brands that says you can only have a certain amount of disputes. You can actually lose your ability to take cards. It's
Wow.
not really, for restaurant chains and things like that. It's typically not at that level, but it can be. And if disputes go unanswered and there's no kind of um, recourse whenever the same person is coming in every single Friday getting curbside to go over and over, and then that starts to compound, it can actually be a threshold issue for you, and you can have to go on, the monitoring program. You can have to pay fines. You can have to do remediation plans. There can be all kind of variables that come along with it.
So when you're talking about how the like this influencing vendor relationship specifically relating to this to or you're being specific to credit card processors.
Yeah, yeah,
Got it.
yeah, because that's the ones that, who's losing there is the merchant's losing, but the credit card processor has some obligation as it relates to that as well. So they're going to be impacted by it. And I suppose if your margins are hurt, your other vendors may start to be impacted if you're a small business and as you can't pay them.
Right. So we've uncovered or unpackaged segment one, setting the stage, chargeback 101 for restaurants. Segment two, the rise of friendly fraud and first party misuse. And now we're about to roll into segment three, organized chargeback fraud, the new criminal playbook. So, how is this evolving? How is this going from friendly fraud to like organized crime?
So, okay, so this is super crazy, and I almost don't like talking about it because I don't want to educate more people on it.
Well, this is
But
the
I think
restaurant
for
owners
this
are
group,
listening,
yeah,
right?
exactly. For this group, we're good.
Get into it.
TikTok and Reddit, and there's entire groups that talk about how to commit chargebacks, chargeback fraud, and actually go to these places. They don't respond, so do chargebacks on them. Order food from here. They don't respond. I've done it 10 times. This is what you do. Order these things, tell them this, go on your bank app, use this type of card. This is how to do it on the app. A literal play-by-play. You remember the Wall Street bets? And it's like it had hundreds of that. These things are like people posting what to do and how to get essentially free things. And so if you end up on one of these or in one of these videos, you're going to have a massive wave of these things because all the followers are going to go immediately do it, and you're going to wake up one day if you have no chargeback protection, and you're going to be used to getting 100 chargebacks a month, or maybe even less if you're smaller, and you're going to have 3,000, and there's nothing, it's like, and then you're not going to be prepared. So that's why it's so important to have a strategy with chargeback management.
That just I can't imagine being that crappy of a person. Like
Yeah,
it blows my mind
same.
that there are just people out there that are just completely maybe they're not bad people, maybe they're just ignorant. And I think that's honestly probably more likely is that people are just ignorant when it comes to what it goes into what it takes to be successful in the restaurant industry. Um, and I you know what, part of me too is kind of like shame on the restaurant industry because we let it get to this point where we've made it
Yeah,
transactional. You know what I'm saying? Like
yeah.
we have gotten it's become a numbers game, and it's like how did we let it get here to the point where there's no relationship behind these transactions, and we just give the consumer what the consumer wants, and the consumer wants
Convenience, no friction, all of
right.
it.
And at
No,
what cost, man?
here's the thing too. I think you can have it all. You can have it all. You can have all the benefits of frictionless payments and all the things that come along with it. You can have the increased sales from apps and curbside and all the different angles. You can literally have it all. The thing you have to consider is you have to, again, you have to have a chargeback management strategy, because with every benefit you're going to have the potential downsides. And so as long as you cover that, you can have it all. You can have a great in restaurant experience, you can have a great curbside experience, you can allow people to order with ease and have all the tricks and tools of it, but you can't do that without considering that there will be fraud. You're creating the easier the transaction, the more the loopholes, and you're creating an opportunity for people to exploit it. And as long as you know that going in and you have a good strategy for it, then you can remediate that.
So relative to this segment we're in, organized chargeback fraud, like the criminal playbook, you talked about TikTok and social media, YouTube tutorials teaching consumers on how to do this and where to go, and like Reddit threads where people are just sharing information on like where you can get away with this sort of thing.
Even movie references. Sorry, I like even movie there's in movies now. I saw something with I forget the actress, but like they're talking about chargeback, and the lady she had done a chargeback that bought something and then she was telling someone she did a chargeback and got her money back. It was like literally explaining friendly fraud in this movie by this famous actress. Like, so anyway, yeah, no,
Or it's
it's
becoming culturally like normal too. That's the other thing.
and known. Yeah.
Yeah. But tell me more about like the coordination of abuse across platforms like delivery aggregators and loyalty programs. Did you get into that?
Yes. Yeah. So delivery, what we've seen as it relates to delivery services is coordinated, like for example, a great example of this was the frat house. And so what we saw, it was a lot of alcohol, and some of these orders were several hundreds of dollars. And what would happen is the consumers, the college students would switch off who was doing the chargeback. So I order, I do the chargeback. Then you order next week and you do the chargeback. And then this person, so it's not even the card as a unique identifier to say, oh, they've done the same thing in the
It's
same
harder to find
place.
a pattern.
It was yes. And so it you have to have good technology, good tools that can identify based on a lot of different indicators, not just the card. It can be the address, the zip code, heat mapping. I mean, all kind of different things because they will. People imagine you're in college. You just saw this Reddit group. They told you how to do it. You got your frat buddies together, and before these people even wake up, before the food delivery company even wakes up in the local restaurants, they're 20,000 in. And individually, it's just one, everybody did a chargeback and they went their app and did it. Combined, it's can be huge amounts of money.
So when you're saying like delivery aggregators, you're saying third party, like where people can use that and then use this process that you're talking about, like switching off. There isn't necessarily like I mean, how does like, am I getting that right?
Yeah, and the thing to remember too is many of these food delivery services are passing that debit back to the merchant. And so they're not as keen. They're just I take the order, I deliver it, I take my fee, and I
No
pass the
loss,
money
no
on
skin
to the
off my
merchant.
back.
Yeah, so it's really for them, it's like the ultimate no friction is I go in an app and I order from whatever restaurant I want and it's set to my doorstep and they just take a percent and pass it on.
See, like, that's a whole nother conversation, right? Like, is it worth being on these third party platforms is a big argument. And a lot of people say, well, it's the marketplace. Like it's marketing. And that's how you have to
Yeah.
look at it. And that fee you're being charged is a marketing fee. But like when you start to factor in this rise in this transactional psychological relationship of there is no person on the end of this order and creating awareness and people just realizing like, oh, I can just dispute this and that low hanging fruit, like rent's due and money's tight, like and I'm really hungry.
Yeah.
Like when you factor in all these things, like how much money are restaurants losing because of these third parties? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Immense amount, billions and billions of dollars. I had, yeah.
But it almost never comes into the conversation about is it worth it or not relative to third parties.
Yeah. We have a data point that from one of our industry white papers, 1.7 billion is what surveyed restaurants are saying that they're losing per year
Say that
and
one more
charge
time. 1.7 billion.
1.7 billion aggregate on in chargeback fraud and misuse. And so it is an amount and think about 1.7 billion is probably 10 billion in sales,
Yeah.
all lost. Because the other thing is, when you have imagine a TikTok, group and everybody's just been educated, they're not getting a Subway sandwich. They're not using this newfound knowledge to get a Subway sandwich. They're getting the steak and lobster tail. If I'm going to do it, you're going to go for it. And so these are hundreds of dollars losses in some cases at one pop. So no,
The more
it's a
fraudulent it looks, the better off you are, right? Like, oh,
yeah,
somebody spent $500 on my card. I didn't get that. I didn't order that. And
yeah.
you're like, that looks fraudulent.
Yep, didn't get the right thing. Food was cold. I mean, there's all kind of variables, and that's the kind of lower rung of friendly fraud, where the consumer actually orders it with the intent to pay, and they get it, and it's cold or whatever, and now they dispute it, and instead of calling the restaurant trying to remediate the issue,
Yeah, I don't know
It's
if I'm
just
alone on this one, but like I've used third party once, and once was all I ever needed because I spent almost 10 years throughout high school and college, post college, as a commercial pilot delivering pizza to make money on the side hustle. And like I know what good service is as like a pizza delivery
yeah,
guy, like I'm gonna
yeah,
bring in your barrels as I'm walking up to the front door and I'm gonna know your name and like there's a relationship
yeah.
there. I ordered pizza from this place once and like it's starting to rain out, it's drizzling, and I'm just like wondering like where the hell is my pizza? It was sitting on the front steps, soaking wet is where it was. And it's just like
Oh,
I need to like
wow.
I guess that was on me because I'm supposed to know that like it's there or
Yeah.
there's like I'm not if I'm not staring at my phone to know that it was delivered. Like anyway, like
Well, and you know what's going to happen too is yeah, I know it's is if that is probably 7 out of 10 people, that's definitely a chargeback.
well, yeah, exactly. And that's where I'm going with this is like it was bad service on the third party and I'm not happy. And there's a lot of jabroni third party delivery people out there. I'm sorry if I'm offending anyone,
Yeah, there
but
is. Yeah.
like that's going to go back on the restaurant. The third party is not liable for that situation where they were the break in the link of the chain that made it a bad experience, which makes it
And
eligible for a chargeback. But I digress.
yeah, that's right. And one thing we haven't talked about as it relates to chargeback. So chargeback data can actually be extremely useful for you as a business because if you see a common trend in why people are doing chargebacks, if there's real, so for example, in that case, on that night, if they had 10 people do a chargeback for because their pizza got left on their doorstep and got rained on, and they actually understood how to review their chargebacks, how to review the data, etc., then they can make business changes. They can say, hey guys, this is what's happening. Don't do that, do this, and actually improve your service. And that's what we focus a lot on our merchants. We say it's like, understanding your chargebacks, why they're happening, and what you can do to prevent them, and also recovering lost revenue related to chargebacks. And so, the data that comes from disputes, especially at scale, can really be eye-opening, can help you. We tell our merchants all the time, ship quickly
Yeah.
because you will reduce your chargebacks for merchandise not received, like all kind of different things.
Right. So loyalty programs, how does that play into this abuse?
Yeah, there's all kind of variations of that. Most loyalty programs have a chargeback mechanism, just like anything else. Um, People can misuse points. I mean, I saw an example of someone had a credit card loaded and they were buying Visa gift cards using the credit card loyalty points on their Amazon. Because when you have Amazon, and then you have your loyalty points in there, and then you can use that to make purchases. And then they were using that and then doing a dispute with their credit card company saying, oh, I never bought these gift cards that they did buy and they did use. And we were trying to help someone resolve this issue, but there's tons of loyalty stuff. They have a dispute mechanism just like anything else. And if you use it as a payment, a way to pay for an item, a gift card, a flight, or whatever, you can dispute it just like anything else.
Wow, that's wild. So, okay, before we move to the next segment and start wrapping things up, what
Yeah.
should restaurant owners look for? Like, what are the signs that they might be targeted for systemic fraud? Like, what are we looking for?
It's the volume and the time frame. So if you wake up one day and you have, the amount of chargebacks you get in a month that morning, you've got a problem. There's some
You've been
systemic
targeted. People
thing.
said,
You've
okay,
been
we've got a
targeted.
sucker.
Yeah. And you got to do something. And you got to do something and you got to be prepared before that happens because for example, we get calls sometimes when it's already happened. And you think about a 10-day window, a 7-day window to respond. There's really, you can't jump on it and respond in 7 days. And so you have to be prepared prior to and have a good strategy, have a chargeback management, mechanism.
So we spent a lot of time. I mean, we've covered a lot. 3 segments so far. We've discussed segment 1, setting the table, chargebacks 101 for restaurants, the rise of friendly fraud and first party misuse in segment 2, segment 3, the organized chargeback fraud, how this is really scaling and people are really getting organized and it's like you said, what was it, the billions, $100 billion of this happening worth of
Yeah.
revenue.
Yeah.
And now we have to talk about, what can we do about it? What can restaurants do? Like, it's, we could do it ourselves if we have, 15 hours laying around here and there, which I don't think owners
Yeah.
do. But like, what is the next, like, what do we do?
What up, unstoppable restaurant owners and operators? We have to interrupt today's video to let you know that Restaurant Unstoppable and Restaurant Systems Pro, we're taking our relationship to the next level. Beginning in July of 2024, Fred Langley, CEO of Restaurant Systems Pro, is making himself available once a week in Restaurant Unstoppable Network to answer all of your restaurant systems questions, whether it's the profit margins. He will look at your P&L. Bring your P&L. He will take a look at that. He will dissect it. He will help you find your profit, whether that be through budgeting, inventory management, costing and recipe cards, labor, checklists, you name it. He is a master of restaurant systems, and he's making himself available to you. Fred Langley and Restaurant Systems Pro started as a consulting firm, and for over 16 years, they've been helping their clients increase their profit by 10% or more. What are you waiting for? Click the link below to join our Facebook group, Restaurant Unstoppable Network.
Well, so the advice I would give to anyone is be prepared. So focus on what you do, which is running your restaurant, running your business, running your restaurants. But understand that this is an issue. If it's not something that's on your radar now, at some point it's going to be on your radar, and it may be at a very bad time when you've been targeted. And then be prepared. Engage with hopefully Chargebacks 911, but really a chargeback management organization to help you be ready and respond to your disputes and chargebacks. And it can be fairly hands off once you have a vendor like us, where you go through the process of onboarding, and now your disputes come to us.
What's that process of onboarding look like?
It's so that's a great question. So our merchants, so if you sign with CB911, it's really lightweight. It's very little work. There's no technical resources required from the merchant. We work with a lot of the CRMs. We already have integrations with many of them, processors, gateways, likely the CRM they're already using, where all their data is stored. And so then when
you're saying CRM, are you talking about the POS system?
Yeah. Their relationship management system, their POS systems.
Their list of emails and credit cards. Yeah.
And so and we don't deal with any full, we deal with a different version of it, but when you're a client of ours, for example, when the chargeback comes in, instead of you getting an email from your bank and then you're kind of trying to figure it out, those disputes actually come to us. And they go to you, but you'll have a client portal that will show you like, hey, you've received these disputes. These are the statuses of them. You'll have something called an error, risk, and threat notification that will show you like, hey, these are trends and patterns that we're seeing in your data that you may want to address to prevent disputes from happening, et cetera. And then we will take the data that you've provided us and pair it to that dispute automatically and respond on your behalf based on the reason that the consumer disputed.
When you're saying we, is that people or is that a software that's taking that?
We are highly automated. I mean, obviously we have staff, like for example, if a dispute comes in and it's, $1,500, you have a human. We're looking at that. We're addressing it to make sure that it's the best possible case to represent. But no, it's highly technology driven. So it will look at the reason for the chargeback and the requirements to respond to it, and then pair that and respond on your behalf.
So what is the technology exactly? So there's this information coming from the credit card processor saying that this is being returned, or the CRM. You get notified. What is you being there's a ding, there's an automation going to your software where it's looking at the data associated with that. And are there patterns? Is it looking for certain patterns? Like what is the technology?
Yeah, it is looking for patterns. It's intelligent source detection is our patent technology, and it does look for patterns. It does look for things that so what it'll do is it'll say, what is the reason for the dispute that comes from the bank? And the bank has to provide a reason. And then what is the information that we have available to us? Do we believe that this is not correct based on the information required? For example, if you have if you have geolocation and they said they didn't receive the items, but you can see that they did because of geolocation, that is information that you would put in the dispute. The important thing to realize too is when you respond to a dispute, you're not necessarily even saying you're right or wrong. And we're certainly not we're not deciding the winner or loser of that dispute. What you're doing is the issuing bank that initiated the dispute on behalf of the merchant receives the response that you give, and they look at the information and they decide based on what you've provided if they believe that the dispute is valid or invalid. And if it's invalid, you win. If it's valid, the consumer wins. And so this consumer does win sometimes because their pizza is soggy and because of all these different things. But you respond, you give information, you allow them to evaluate it, and then they make a decision accordingly. But you're not spending 15 hours to do it. A system is doing it for you, a system generated, and is providing the information that you've provided to us in a really clear and automated way to call out the things that are super important.
So it's instantaneous. So as soon as there's a chargeback that hits, you get notified, and within, the first hour of that, whatever it is, 3 to 10 days, you said?
Yeah.
You're
So it goes in our every single day, millions of disputes hit processors and banks on behalf of merchants. And our system goes and pulls those to the CB911 stack.
You're saying
And
CD 911, so chargebacks 911. Just
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So Chargebacks 911. Yeah, our clients often call us CB911, so it's kind of just stuck. But yeah, it goes into our software and gets paired and responded to if necessary, or accepted if we think it's based on the information that it's real fraud. And then the merchant gets a client portal that shows them it's a really easy screen that'll show them a summary of the chargeback data, and it'll say you've received these disputes. This is the total amount. These are the wins. These are the losses. This is the ones that are in pending status. And most importantly, for any business owner, is you get summary of why those are happening. And imagine if you look at your chargebacks and you get 300 chargebacks, and 50% of them are because the merchandise wasn't received. You would start really drilling into why are they saying this? Are we too slow? Did we say
Maybe
it was going
you
to be
could
30
tie those
minutes?
specific chargebacks with a specific individual.
Yeah, you can. All of that. So you really start to get data that you can act on. And I'll give you an example just from a standard e-commerce merchant. A big reason that people charge back is they think merchandise not received. And so in a day and age where we get things same day, next day shipping, if you take a week to ship, you will have higher chargebacks than your peers. You generally will. And so we see so many situations where the chargeback the order's done on the first, the chargeback occurs on the fifth, and there's a UPS tracking at their house that it was delivered on the seventh. That is data that we give to our clients that they can then take action on, and they can understand like, hey, 50% of my disputes are coming from this reason. Let me see if it warrants keeping it as it is, or if I need to make a change.
Got it. So from the moment that there's a trigger on CB911's radar that there's a dispute, typically how long does it take for you to challenge and win that dispute?
So the challenge is pretty quickly. It's within a matter of a couple of days, depending on variables that we set up with the merchant when they onboard. But so because you have to have access to the data, all the things that go along with it. The resolution of that can take 30, 60 days. It can take a period of time. It's typically very quick. Depending on the information, it could be, you respond, and then within 7-10 days, we have the bank's decision. Sometimes it can be a bit more, especially if it's contentious or the consumer responds again or other variables, but it's usually pretty quick. I would say within 2 weeks.
Okay. So you're throwing a lot of information. I have questions come into my head, but I don't want to interrupt you. So once there is a dispute, it takes a couple of weeks to maybe 30 or 90 days or whatever you said, as long as, like, what is that process? Like where is this going? Is this going to an individual? Like, is this is this like creating like like yeah, like what happens? Like what is that process of actually winning? Like what has to happen? I'm just curious.
Yeah,
Like
this is a great point. Let me take you through the kind of the cycle, the life cycle of it. It'll be really brief, but it'll help you really understand. So, starting with a consumer or anyone decides, I'm going to file a dispute. I pull up my phone, go on my online, or I call my bank and I say, hey, I want to file a dispute. This is the reason. That dispute goes from the consumer's bank, the issuing bank, to the card brands, to the merchant's bank, and then to the merchant. That merchant's account is debited. The consumer receives a provisional credit. The merchant then has a short window of time. It can be 7 days, it can be 10 days to decide, do I want to respond? And if so, to prepare my response and send it. They then respond. It goes back through the same channel to the same issuing bank that originated that dispute. Then at that bank, it's a human being who decides based on the information you provided, win or loss. And it's typically a human being. And so then they decide is the information based on the card brand rules, because it's not just discretionary, it's based on rules that are provided by the card brands. If the information was sufficient to win or lose a dispute. And then accordingly, if you lose it, that charge is then reinitiated. It's called a representment, and then you receive your funds.
this just seems like such a misuse and abuse of human existence. It's like
Yeah, it
infuriating.
is.
To like
It is.
just because you want to pull a fast one, you're putting such a cog in the wheel of humanity and society to be a dingleberry. Like it's just so annoying, man. It's just
Yeah,
infuriating that like that we are so in a world where we're trying to be more efficient. Like someone's paying the price somewhere,
yeah,
for
yeah.
that efficiency. Um, I'm thinking about bank charges right now. Like, no wonder why it's so expensive to run a bank because you got to have these humans deal with BS all day long. I'm sorry.
Well,
You're
and you
striking a chord with me.
also,
Like I haven't had
yeah,
lunch
I
yet,
know,
so I'm
good,
probably
get passionate
irritable too.
about it. Well, that's the other thing to remember too. Merchants pay a fee. So not only when you receive a dispute, not only do you receive the debit for the amount of the dispute, your bank charges you a fee related to receiving it. It can be $30, $20. And then so the average it's and I put down some stats here. So on average, 3x the amount of it. So $3.50 for every dollar chargeback, according to LexisNexis. This isn't just us saying
You're getting
stats.
you by disputing that chargeback are getting a fee tagged onto your dispute.
Yeah, well, by receiving it, period. You could get the chargeback and a $30 fee. So LexisNexis estimates that for every dollar in chargebacks you get, it actually costs you $3.50 because the bank fees and the time of humans and all the things you have to do to respond to it if you do it internally.
Wow. I am a little curious as to like what actually like the technology side of things. You mentioned earlier like if there's like geolocators, like you can tap into that data to see if the delivery actually went to the location. Like what is you talk about the CRM or like the point of sales to like get all that data. Like what are the other data points, the other technologies that are in this mix of information that you as CB 911 like that onboarding process of like, okay, well, you need to give us access to all these touch
Yeah.
points, all these data points. Like what are those different data points?
Yeah, like one of the kind of secret sauce of the industry is, and it's wonderful for us, is that banks are very fragmented and janky and legacy. Some are great and very sophisticated. Some are 100 years old. And the last thing that's getting investment, your consumer facing app can be the most beautiful streamlined thing in the entire world. The chargeback data on the back end and how they report chargebacks and how you receive them could be still literally fax machines. And so what we have gotten really good at, all of our technologies, home built, proprietary, et cetera, is being able to patch into those multiple data sources, whether it's the point of sale, which there could be, 25 with all different types of forms of where data is stored, et cetera. banking institutions, how do they give you your chargebacks? How do you retrieve them? How do you respond to them? Our system will use AI and machine learning to learn the patterns and learn the requirements of that system. And then for every merchant that's on that, we follow that protocol. And so you could have a merchant, you could have 10 restaurants, all that we receive and process and respond to data differently based on who they bank with and who their CRM is or their point of sale system is. But the data points to your question, I mean, obviously you need the chargeback itself from the financial institution and any supporting information that came along with that, like time and date of the transaction, settlement, auth data, things like that. And then from the merchant themselves, you need anything that they store related to the transaction, which could be like the name, phone number, and address that perhaps it was delivered to, and any time and dates to be able to match that up. The thing is, there's nothing in there, like we don't deal with full credit card numbers because it's not necessary, it's not required to respond. We're PCI level 1, we could use that if we wanted to, but we don't. And then there's no kind of like heavy consumer data in there other than general name, phone number, things related directly to that transaction.
Got it. Man, I never thought I'd be this curious about right now. I'm looking at the time. We have 15 minutes left together. I'll make sure we use it wisely. How can the third-party payment platforms, or third-party platforms and processing companies, support restaurants or fail restaurants?
Well, one way is honestly working with us. I mean, we partner with a lot of processors, CRMs, gateways, and they many of them, particularly in restaurants, actually, the parent or it could be the CRM or the POS, or it could be the franchise kind of main franchise group that works with all of the franchisees. They've done partnerships with us to allow their restaurant owners to patch into our services without necessarily having to come and do it all themselves. So imagine if you're using a particular processor, you're using a particular CRM, et cetera, having CB911 as an available app or option in that system that you can opt into using using your existing relationship, for example, with your processor, that you could opt into our services and then you start using them. That is a major way. It's a great
You're saying
way,
like if you're using a like any kind of processor, like name a big one out there.
like that people could use. WorldPay is one of our.
So WorldPay has a feature where you can turn on that feature and immediately get access to your services.
Yeah, yes. To answer, so WorldPay is the biggest acquirer in the world. So there's obviously a lot of different ways that we work with them, but yes, that is one option. Is that people that bank with WorldPay can utilize CB911 services via the relationship with WorldPay.
Got it. And how do these processors fail restaurants?
I would say, I don't know, fail restaurants. I would say like the data provided so the restaurants can understand their chargebacks and why they're happening, I think is something that I wouldn't say they fail. It's not a priority. Most of the time with processors, the priority is the lowest rate on the transactions. What is my lowest rate? How can I get this for the cheapest? And so they're not focusing on value adds. I think the best way to flip that, the best way a processor can enhance their offering to their end merchants is to partner with value-added services like us and offer us to their merchants and in a way that helps the merchant do, at no cost to the processor, by the way, helps the merchant to be able to solve kind of
even the fact that it's a cost to the restaurant is still annoying, because I think, what is the split? It's like a 70-30 split. So if I were to, as a restaurant, dispute a $100 chargeback and we win, I'm going to keep $70 of that chargeback, and the payout to CB911 is at $30, right?
Well, it depends. It can be, we have different pricing models. It can be a flat rate where we just pay per response every time we respond to a chargeback. And then what you're talking about is a revenue share. So yeah, I mean, it is a cost. I will say though, we don't have a single merchant that uses us, bar none, single, that does not recover more revenue, and in some cases, millions of dollars more than they pay us in fees.
Well,
And
that's
so,
yeah, and then that's I think what I was working up to. Like even with that, that split, that 70-30 split, that's money you can't get back on your own at the volume that it's coming in on, and like you just don't. It's not good use of your time.
yeah, it's right.
This is
It's
a
right.
delegate type thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and you're going to get so we have in our agreements with our clients ROI guarantees. So if you have an agreement with us and you don't recover more than you pay us, then we allow you to exit the agreement with no terms or anything. And so which never happens because everyone recovers more. And you have to consider there's intangible value. So there's the tangible, which is the revenue recovery, uh, and all of that goes along with it. But then there's and the data and the understanding of why chargebacks are happening. So you can look at your business, and if you see trends or patterns, you can take action on it. But it's also the responding to bad consumer behavior in the community and making sure that you're not an easy target, and that's something that's so important. So yeah, you're paying a percentage of your wins for the work that we're doing, but you're getting so much more. It's paying for itself, and you're getting all the ancillary benefits to go along with it.
We got to wrap things up, man. We got one more segment to cover. We've covered setting the stage, chargeback 101 for restaurants. We've talked about the rise of friendly fraud and first party misuse, organized chargeback fraud, the new criminal playbook with the third segment. And then we just wrapped up what restaurants can do about it. The answer, look into CB 911. It seems like
Right.
kind of a no-brainer. And then let's just talk about the wrapping it up with the bigger picture. So why are regulations favoring cardholders, and what needs to change?
Yeah, I think to start with, as I said in the beginning of this, chargebacks are an amazing consumer protection device. The whole dispute process was invented so that consumers would adopt credit cards because I don't know if you're probably not this old. I remember when I was young, my parents would say, "Oh, don't use your credit card because someone gets that number, they're going to drain your account." It was like this fear around credit cards. And so the whole chargeback and the MasterCard Zero Liability campaign and all the things that come along with making people feel comfortable to use their card, that if you have real fraud, you will get your money back. And that is absolutely as it should be. And, 100% in the right direction there. But there has to be a level playing field. And so there has to be an ability for merchants and businesses to represent their own side of the equation and respond to it. And so from our perspective, you'll never hear us say like chargebacks are bad or you shouldn't have them or anything like that. You just need to make sure that everybody in the ecosystem is on a level playing field and has the ability to respond to to what's happening.
So what needs to change in order for there to be a level playing field?
I think, I don't know. I don't know if I really want to get like into specific regulations because I don't want to, we're happy with the system, we're happy with how things work generally. I think the mindset of all chargebacks are fraud, and that's the first kind of going into it view on things is incorrect. I think it's incorrect. And I think that, from a regulator's perspective, from a general public's perspective, I think when you look at disputes, it needs to be looked at as a buyer and seller has a dispute on what occurred in that transaction, and each part has rights and a mechanism to respond. And then accordingly, each part needs to be able to respond and the resolution needs to be achieved. That is the way to look at this whole scenario. And I think generally people that the knowledge of chargebacks and what it is and that there's good and bad chargebacks and all the things that come along with it has advanced so significantly in the last 10 years and even the last 5 years. I used to talk to people about this and they would say, "Oh, it's fraud." Yeah, it's fraud. The consumer was frauded. Everyone knows now somebody who's done a chargeback. There wasn't fraud. There's all kind of variables, and I think the consumer or the general understanding of how this industry works and what's going on and what the potential misuses could be are are advancing at a great level. And also in the regulation, I know there's a lot out there right now being looked at by regulators. I know that there's things being talked about with as it relates to the card brands, et cetera. I do think, efficiency in the ecosystem, whether that's regulatory or just general, industry infrastructure is super important. I think it makes it easier for people to do their part. It shouldn't take 15 hours, shouldn't take 5 hours.
I mean, is there nothing that the restaurants can do to influence policy change?
Um, I think that yes. I mean, I don't know. Hold on, let me look at my notes here. I want to be careful not to touch on specific regulatory stuff, but I do think, yeah, I think in industry groups, the chargebacks can be talked about in restaurant industry groups, talked about data share, knowledge share, things like that, so that the lobbyists can talk about with the regulatory agencies and elected officials, the challenges that they're seeing and what specific things that they think that they're not getting from their bank institutions or partners that they would like to see. I think that's a big thing. And I do think, again, I'm not going to touch on some specific stuff, but I think there's a lot of fees. There's a lot of fees.
Is there a specific thing that you're like avoiding? Is there like what am I?
No, it's always like, listen, but no, I think fees are a big thing. I mean, it is when you're a merchant, you're a small business and you get a chargeback and you're getting dinged by fees and ever-changing rules and complexity, it's almost prohibitive for you to, the days of people having an internal department handling things on their own are gone. It's so complex. The web is so tangled.
If I'm reading between the lines, and this isn't you saying it, it's me saying it, is that there's policy changes on the banks to not have fees associated with people trying to defend themselves.
I think the banks and the card brands I think there's a big ecosystem and there's a lot of players in it that, that touch the process. And so I think, if we're looking at policy change and considerations of how this whole thing works, I think that should be looked at for sure.
Got it. One last question before we officially wrap it up. If I am a consumer who's guilty of fraud, of misusing the system to get free things, what happens if I'm found guilty?
That is a great question, and we actually get it a lot. If someone does something, so this is not a court of law. This is a kind of civil dispute. There's no criminal recourse for losing a chargeback.
Maybe that's something that we can change.
Perhaps that what really happens is just like the merchant woke up one day and their account got dinged and the money got yanked out of it. That's what would happen to the consumer who loses.
Maybe the revoking of somebody's ability to use a credit card to make a purchase. That's a baby.
And the industry has adopted some things. They will your credit card issuer will look at certain behaviors and things like that. But by and large, there's no incentive. For their perspective, there's not a lot of incentive to shut that consumer down.
What happens when you're caught speeding or drinking and driving?
Yeah, you get points or you get some type of...
Yeah, eventually you lose your license. You lose your privilege.
Yeah, I think we've solved the answer on the regulatory question. No, I think there is some stuff you could look at there. And I think there's, you could look at how much consumers...
The credit card processors and the banks don't want that.
No.
They don't want fewer people using cards and getting their fees.
It's also a hot, from even if you're an elected official or a regulator, I mean, you're not looking at, you're looking at every chargeback is correct. You know what I mean? And like it's not. And you're not going to go make a law to say like, oh, I'm going to penalize people from doing disputes because it's not, I don't think it's palatable.
Ben, this has been a lot of fun, man. I really do appreciate you taking the time to educate myself and my listeners on this subject. I learned a ton today. If we're interested in Chargebacks 911, I have become an affiliate. You guys have an affiliate program?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Be sure to listen to the closing thoughts of today's episode. We'll have a specific link for you to go to make sure that Chargebacks 911 knows you're coming from me. That would help support the show a lot. So stick around. I think it's going to be restaurantunstoppable.com/CB911. That's easy to remember.
Yeah, it's great.
But any final thoughts, words, calls to action we should be aware of?
Yeah, just the big thing to take away from today is don't be scared. We have tons of restaurants that we work with that we've been able to help have it all. You can have it all. You can have a robust business. You can have ease of doing business with you. You can do food delivery and curbside to go and your apps and your websites. And you can do all the things that grow your business without fear, provided that you consider, having a chargeback strategy, and we're here to help on many levels. And so, yeah, but, keep that in mind. Sometimes chargebacks can be paralyzing. I think the fear of fraud or being the victim of fraud can be prohibitive to growing your business or looking at ways to kind of push the ball forward. I would say to anyone listening that's owning a restaurant, don't be scared. To keep doing all the things that you're doing, just make sure that you consider chargeback management strategy. If you do them without chargeback protection, you're going to have a problem. If you do them with a partner like CB911, we will help you through it.
Awesome, Ben. Thank you. And thank you to CB911 for partnering with Restaurant Unstoppable to support this mission to inspire, empower, and transform the industry. There is no question, Ben, you and Chargebacks 911 are unstoppable.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you. Bye-bye. All right, Unstoppables, I have your call to action. If you're interested in learning more about Chargebacks 911, head over to restaurantunstoppable.com/CB911. When you head over there, we'll get some information from you and we'll put you on a list. Right now, the plan is to do a demo on August 11th, but we're still waiting to get final approval from the folks high up at Chargeback 911. They're very careful about getting information out there. I've assured them that this is going to be behind a private community. We won't be pushing this to YouTube. If you want this live demo, if we get approval, it will only be in Restaurant Unstoppable Network. So we're waiting on that approval. We're shooting for August 11th, but we'll also, we'll know that you're interested in Chargebacks 911 when you fill out that form. So I'll make a personal introduction for you if that's what you're interested in, but we'll also get you the complete guide, the Geek's Guide to Chargebacks, all you need to know to become an expert in chargebacks and friendly fraud. And we're also going to throw in the 2025 Cardholders Dispute Index, which is an annual report designed to offer retailers, financial institutions, and other stakeholders a comprehensive look at the current state of chargebacks from the consumer perspective. It's so obvious I'm reading from a script, but that was a lot to get out there. They're also going to throw you a little pamphlet too, which is basically just a little two-sheeter on disputes, how to resolve disputes and stop chargebacks. All that when you head over to restaurantunstoppable.com/CB911. We'll get you on the list. We'll get you an introduction. But first, you got to let us know you're interested. Again, restaurantunstoppable.com/CB911. And if you guys do choose to work with Chargeback 911 or Chargebacks 911, full disclaimer, they are supporting Restaurant Unstoppable. They're going to pay me a commission for all leads I send their way. This is how we support the show. And thank you in advance.